Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Bryce with BS Media, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Panasonic UB420, UB820, or UB9000 settings, as the settings are all in one and the same when it comes to these players because they do use the same chip, the same processor. They all just have a few different features as far as formats that they read, and if they are THX certified, if you have the UB9000, and a couple of different inputs on the back, but the settings themselves are the same. So we're going to kind of go over those today and just try to simplify them a little bit, show you what all the settings are, so that way if you're just now getting one of these, it might help you get those players set up a little bit easier, or if you just want to take a look at them and maybe fine-tune your player if you already have one of those. And so let's go ahead and jump right into it, guys. So I'm going to go over here to the setup, and right now I'm actually testing and reviewing the UB9000, so this is the player that's being used for this video. And let's go ahead and take a look at this and make sure you guys can see it. And there's a few different setup options. There's player settings, wallpaper, and BD video data erase. So we're just going to click on player settings right now. And here we go. So there is a whole bunch of different options here. And the first one's being the HDMI. So let's go ahead and click on the HDMI. And we have the different options for resolution. It's automatically set to auto, but you can tell it to go ahead and just put it in 480p, 1080i, 1080p, or 4K. Honestly, if you're getting this player, I would hope that it can play in backend 4K and actually support that. If not, I'm not really sure why you'd want this player, to be honest, but those are different options for you if you wanted to. So honestly, it's just best you should keep it at auto because it will pull the 4K or whatever your highest resolution is for your TV. Let's go ahead and click back. And there's 4K 60p output. So you can tell it different variations if you wanted to. And so you can do the 4K 60p 420 if you want. And when that is selected, video's output is 4K 60p 420 and it's an 8-bit. But if you have the 4K 60p 444 selected, video output is 4K 60p 444 8-bit or 4K 60 422 12-bit. So it automatically will pull the highest resolution that it can out there for you. So it's best just go ahead and keep this auto, or just keep it at the designated slot that it instantly pulls up for you, because it's going to be able to recognize what your TV can handle in that capacity. There is the 24p output. It's usually just set to auto. You can turn it off completely if you want to. When auto is selected and this unit is connected to a TV that supports 24p, video recorded in 24p is output to 24p automatically. Or you just set this to off. That's usually going to be for some kind of lower resolution type playback, maybe like DVD or a low input Blu-ray possibly. There is the HDMI video output mode. This is usually going to be set to auto because on the back of the player itself, it already has these designated. So there's two different HDMIs. There's one that's for video plus audio, and there's one that's just audio out, and you can actually tell it which one you want from there. So I just go ahead and keep this auto because it already has those two different inputs, but you can switch it completely around if you wanted to. There's another HDMI audio output mode, so you could actually switch that to do the opposite if you want to. Not really sure why they have that if they already have two HDMIs designated for this, but hey, it's just another way you can customize the player if you choose to. And then there's the Dolby Vision setting, so you can turn this off or on if your TV can support it. 100% keep this on because I think that's the best format that you could possibly play back in personally. I know some people don't like it, and that's perfectly fine. So if you want to turn it off, you could, but I leave mine on for sure. And there is the HDR 10 Plus setting, so this is just another form of HDR. If you want the brightest and one of the best pictures available, keep on HDR 10 Plus because, again, this is just another format that you can play back in when it comes to HDR. So you might as well go ahead and keep it on just because it will provide a better picture and more colors. And then advanced settings, this is when you can really get into the nitty-gritty with this. So you can change the color mode if you want to. So YCB CR is set to auto. I know some people just live and die by the 444 setting. So some people really like that because they say, the colors are just so much better that way. go ahead and just automatically set it to the 444, or you can do 422, RGB standard, or RGB enhanced. That's completely up to you if you want to do that. I know everyone has their own preferences. I just keep mine set at auto. I've seen different side-by-side comparisons. The 444, just a 422. Honestly, it's hard for me to tell a difference. So I'm just like, I'll just keep it at auto. I don't feel like playing around with it when it comes to that part. I know some people live and die and swear by it. So, hey, if you have a preference, go ahead and switch it right there. There is a deep color output. So this is auto set to 12-bit priority. You can also do 10-bit priority, or you can just keep it completely off. And that's only if your TV can't support deep color. Basically, HDR is basically what it's talking about when it talks about deep color. And you do, usually with most TVs, you do have to tell it to turn it on, because it's usually not automatically turned on. You do have to go into the settings and turn that on. So it's going to be more of a TV issue, necessarily more than the player itself. And there's HDR color gamut output. And so it's set to HDR BT 2020 is the main auto. You can also do SDR 2020 auto, or SDR BT 709. I would personally just keep it HDR BT 2020 because, again, it's going to output HDR. If not, it's going to only do standard dynamic range. So that's basically not full HDR or anything like that. But again, this also comes down to your TV and what it can support. The SDR HDR conversion, this is talking about the network service. So this is where you're trying to stream things from some of the built-in apps within here. So if you go ahead and turn this on, it will be able to convert some of those signals into HDR or SDR, just depending on what it has. So you can go ahead and keep this on. This is personally what I would do, just because it's going to try to get the best signal, the best picture out of anything that you're streaming. So that's another option. HLG PQ conversion. So when auto is selected, video is output by converting signal of HDR format or HDR HLG format to HDR PQ format if the connected device does not support HDR HL format. So it's basically just reconverting one of those formats to be able to convert to your TV if it cannot handle HLG format. Again, this is another TV issue here. I just have mine set to off. I don't have auto switch over for that. I'm not really worried about that. I know there's not a lot of different things that actually really support HLG for the most part. I know my TV does, so I'm not really worried about it a whole lot. I think it's one of the lower inputs or lower formats that you really see out there. And then the HDR display type. So this actually is not on the right one, so I'm glad I'm actually looking at this right now. So I've actually covered the HDR optimizer within these players before. I have a whole separate video, and I'll tag it in the top right corner. But what this does is it tries to get the best HDR display on your TV by telling it what kind of TV you have. So I have an OLED. I have an LG B2 OLED. And so what that does is it tries to get the brightest and best picture that it possibly can on your device, depending on how bright the TV can get. So an OLED, usually they cannot get nearly as bright as an LCD, or even, I would even say, even compared to some projectors possibly, just because I know projectors are always getting brighter nowadays. Especially a lot of older OLEDs, they don't get nearly as bright as the newer things out there that are currently on the market. So go ahead and tell it exactly what kind of TV that you have. I know some of these don't really pertain to, a QLED or something like that, because they're not just a basic LCD pattern. There's really no right or wrong answer with this, but the closer you can get it, the better, because then the player itself can tell it what kind of TV that you have, and it can really try to get that metadata correct when it comes to the brightness. 25p, 50p output. This is automatically set to off because I haven't changed actually any of these settings in here. So these are just all the auto settings that are run here. So when auto is selected, 25p, 50p, and 50i video on Ultra HD Blu-ray or Blu-ray disc is output to 2550p by connecting to the 2550p compatible TV. And then depending on the content or the connected TV, the video cannot be output in 25p, 50p. If video is distorted, please select off. So that's automatically set to off. So again, depending on your TV, you can go ahead and set it to auto if you wanted to go ahead and then put it in that format for you if you're viewing any kind of content like that on an Ultra HD Blu-ray or Blu-ray disc. So that's completely up to you if you like to do that. The HDCP output setting. So when auto is selected, video is output appropriately by depending on your connected device. With HDCP 2.2, incompatible TVs connected via an amplifier or a speaker, some parts of video may be output in black screen. In that case, please select HDCP 1.4 limited. So to my understanding on this, it looks like if you just selected HDCP 1.4 limited, what it's going to do is put the video in 2K for playback below Ultra HD Blu-ray and network service. So it's basically saying my TV can't handle the latest HDMI support and it can't play back in 4K. So go ahead and limit it down. Basically demote the picture down to only 2K. If not, if you just set it to auto, it's going to automatically do this for you and you don't have to worry about it. I would just keep this at auto unless you already know your TV can't handle something. Then you can just dumb it down basically to make sure that it does work correctly. Otherwise, it may be output in a black screen. That's what it's saying up above in the description there. And then contents type flag. So if connected TV supports the setting, TV will automatically select the output to suit the display images. So yeah, this is kind of let you know what content is coming up as far as, I guess it's basically what it's saying is it'll have a flag up top and it'll say what kind of HDR is playing, what kind of disc is playing. I would just set this to auto. I think it's kind of cool to be able to see just so you know for sure that it's reading it properly or that it's actually showing up the right formats. So why not? It goes ahead and tells you what format it's going to be playing as far as audio, as far as HDR, and what kind of disc. And then the audio outputs. So you can set this to on, output the audio by an HDMI cable, or you can set it to off if you're going to be doing an optical coaxial cable other than the HDMI. Most people are probably going to do HDMI just because it's the cleanest way to do it. And I think it's usually the easiest way because it's less cables you have to worry about. But again, this depends on your setup. Maybe you have a sound bar, or maybe that's just the way you prefer. That's perfectly fine too. Then you would set this to off and tell it to go through one of those other cables. If not, just try to keep it on. And then there is a 7.1 audio reformatting. So this is set to auto. So when auto is selected, surround sound with 6.1 or less is automatically expanded and played back at 7.1. So that's how mine is set up. It's set to auto. I do have a 7.1 surround, or it's really a 7.2. So I actually like this. I like to be able to expand that audio, but if you don't have this, it may not really pertain to you, so you can just turn it off, or maybe you just don't like the way that it actually does it, and it doesn't do a great job maybe to you. So you can always just turn this off, and then you don't have to worry about it. All right, so that is everything within the HDMI. So we're going to go ahead and go all the way back where we go into video. So there's not a lot in video. So there's still mode, which is pause video. Select the type of picture shown, you pause playback. So you can just have it set to auto. That's what mine is. If you select field, select the setting if jittering occurs when auto is selected. Or you can do frame. So select this setting if small text or fine patterns cannot be seen clearly when auto is selected. Whenever I do auto on pause video, it just pauses directly at whatever frame it is when I'm watching something. So I guess if there's some kind of jittering issue or you can't see some kind of small text or fine patterns, and you can switch over to one of those other ones. I've never personally had an issue with this. I'm not sure exactly what it's talking about because it just pauses wherever you tell it to, and that's the end of it. And then after a while, the screensaver comes up. So I'm not really sure what exactly it's talking about in those regards. And then there's also seamless play. Go ahead and just keep this on. If on is selected, chapters in the playlist are played seamlessly. You might as well go ahead and just keep it on. That's just the default, and it's going to be able to play everything correctly. If not, it'd probably just ask if you want to keep playing or play next chapter, or you have to actually physically tell it to play the next chapter. That would be kind of strange to do that personally, so I would go ahead and just keep that on. Next up, we have audio. So there is the dynamic range compression. So mine is automatically set to off, but if you turn this on, you can listen at low volumes but still hear dialogue correctly. It is valid for Dolby Audio, which is Dolby Digital, Dolby Digital Plus, and Dolby True HD. I'm always having to listen to things pretty quietly because we do have a 1-year-old, and I usually watch things late at night for the most part, at least when it comes to surround sound. So I probably actually should turn this on because I always have everything pretty low. I don't really get to crank it up too often anymore. So this probably would help with dialogue issues that I currently have. So I usually have subtitles on, but if I turn this on, it should be able to make dialogue a little bit louder and a little bit clearer so I can actually hear what's going on without turning away it. And so there's also the digital audio output. So there is Dolby Audio, DTS, DTS HD, and BD video secondary audio here. So the Dolby Audio is automatically set to bitstream, or you can do PCM. That's just depending on your setup and what kind of connections that you have. Same thing with DTS, DTS HD, bitstream or PCM. And then the BD video secondary, if you want to turn this auto on or off, you can do that. Basically what this does is if you go ahead and turn it on, it basically dumbs down the audio. And I actually cover this in a separate video when it comes to lip sync. This is really where that comes in. There's been several people who say, if you go ahead and turn this on and you're having lip sync issues and you can't get audio delay to work correctly, if you turn this on, this actually dumbs down all audio from DTS:X Neural and Dolby Atmos, and it basically just dumps it down to basic Dolby audio. It'll just be, 5.1 surround, 7.1 surround. It's going to dumb that down for you. It's not going to be anything special. So if you turn this on, this would help with that. If not, you just completely turn it off. I have it's completely set to auto. I don't ever mess with that. I don't ever want to turn that on because I don't ever want to dumb down audio per se. But that's another option if you wanted to do that. And if you run into any lip sync issues, I have a full video on that in the top right corner. And then there's the optical coaxial downsampling. So it's automatically set 192 kilohertz sampling frequency for downsampling of digital audio, and output from digital audio output is set. If the connected device does not support 96 kilohertz, please select up to 48 kilohertz. If the connected device does not support 192 kilohertz, please select up to 96 kilohertz. Again, this is just depending on what you have connected and what kind of audio that your system can handle. Again, you might just want to take a look into that and then set from there. And then we have downmix. So downmix methods can be switched for multi-surround audio playback. If a device that can switch from 2-channel to a multi-channel surround is connected, please select surround encoded. So again, this is going to come down to your preferences. If you want something to be downmixed just down to stereo, you can. If not, you can do surround encoded, and it'll do its best to make it more surround sound. Some people like that, some people don't. And also depends, I think, on the playback that's being used. This would probably be more like a CD play or just listen to audio. Then you could try to make it more surround sound like or surround sound-esque. And then you could try to make it where, you feel like you're in a whole concert setting and it's playing all the different speakers with the different audio, and it's not just all multi-channel. You could do it that way. The HDMI output settings for music playback. This is just set to normal. If you wanted to do it just for music, you could do sound quality priority, just making sure that the sound quality is the best thing by far, because then you don't care about the visuals. You just want to be able to see or listen to the music itself. And then settings for high clarity sound. There's a few different things here. So output selection of video playback. Audio output is set to auto, but you can set this HDMI only. Optical coaxial only or analog only. Whenever it comes to audio output, it just depends, again, on your setup and how you have everything set up from there. I just keep mine set to auto, but if you wanted to, you could go ahead and set it to one of those other different options if that's the way you have your system set up. Front panel display during video playback, you can set it to on or off. I always keep it on just because I like to be able to see how long the video itself has been playing, how long the movie's been playing. I always think that's great because I want to be able to see it. And then the audio output, you can tell it auto, HDMI only, optical coaxial only, or analog only, just the same as before, but just for audio instead of video. Then you can also, once again, turn off the front panel display if you so choose to. Okay, this is the audio delay. So if you're having issues with lip sync, you can also delay the audio through the player itself. Again, I cover this in a video just dedicated to this issue. And most of the time, I think it's more beneficial to go ahead and do the lip sync audio delay on your receiver or depending on your TV. So if you have a TV that can do it, definitely do it through the TV. I think that's going to work best. If you want to, you can do it through this way. The only problem with you doing it through the player itself is you can't test it while it's playing. That's the whole problem. So if this is playing, you're having to go through here and do it yourself. And I know you can do it. You know, it's easy. You can just click up or down and it does it for you. But the problem is you can't test it live. So you have to go ahead and switch this back all the way out of it, go back to the video that you're playing, test it from there. So I just think that's a little bit more work to do. So if your TV can handle it, just do it that way. I honestly think that's easily the best way to do it. Analog multi-channel. So this is set to off. Select on to output multi-channel via analog connection. So I have HDMI, so I'm not worried about that at all. There's also the voice guidance setting. So if I click this on, it's going to start playing all the different video guidance settings. So you can basically just turn it off or on. If you're not able to see very well and you can't see these menu options, it will actually read it for you. So I think that's a great thing that they actually have that included. And you can always turn that on at any time within the settings. And usually whenever you're first setting this up, it actually asks you if you want to use it that way. I just have mine set to off, but you can always keep it on. And that way you can have it from the get-go. And that way you don't ever have to go and try to fumble around in the settings just to be able to find it. All right, so now we're in 3D. So this is already set to auto when it comes to video, BD video playback. Set before play, so if you did this, basically if you popped in a 3D disc, you would ask if you want to play the 2D version or the 3D version. I would just have it set to auto. I don't have a 3D TV, so it doesn't really matter anymore, but I do miss 3D. I always say that when any of these reviews, when it comes to 3D Blu-rays, absolutely miss it. OLEDs could play the best 3D I've ever seen before. I just wish it'd come back, honestly. So I know there's always projectors out there that could play it. Maybe one of these days I'm going to have to invest in one just because of 3D and the bigger screen size, but that's another video for another day. There's also 3D AVC HD output. So it's originally set to original. So if it's not properly displaying, you could just dumb it down to 2D basically. Or if you have 3D playback precautions, it'll basically just say that, you know, you need to not be super close to the TV, might be a little bit too bright, could hurt your eyes, something like that. I don't know exactly what it displays, but it's just saying precautions for 3D there. And next up, we have ABC language. So you can select audio language, Spanish, original, or other. If you click other, I'm not sure when it comes to that. I'm sure in the menu it might have a little bit more options there. It might be some different, you probably have to set some kind of 4-digit code and it probably pulls up that language for you. I think that's a different option. I don't think I've ever seen that before on a player, so that just makes it where there's not a long list of languages to choose from. You just probably put in a 4-digit number and it brings it up. Some kind of program. That's neat. Subtitle language is set to auto. Again, there's English, Spanish, or other. Again, about those 4 digits. Menu language is automatically set to English for me, but there also is Spanish, and again, other by a 4-digit code. On-screen language is set to English or just Spanish. And then the closed caption, there's a few different options for closed caption. I'm not going to go into all of those just because they're basically all within the same, but it's just telling you what kind of closed caption display you want to show up on there. You don't really need to worry about this just because there's almost always subtitles on everything now. So you can always set that up in the menu. This is the player trying to do it for you. So it's basically just always making sure there's something on there. If you choose to, I know most people don't care about having closed captions on the previews of things or every little commercial or something out there. You don't really have to do that. If it's something that you care about and you want to have it on everything, go ahead and set that to on. They kind of play around with those settings about what kind of closed captions that you want. And it just has all those different options that you can choose from, but you do have to turn it on first, and then you can actually tell the player how you want it to look. So it's basically just showing a couple different options throughout here for you. And next up, we're in network. So I'm not going to really go into these because it's just setting up your network basically. So there's easy network setting, basically telling it, I just want to look for wireless, or you can also hook it up by Ethernet cable and it will sync up your internet through that way. You do network settings. So if I clicked on network settings, this is when you can tell it if it's, if it's in a wired connection, wireless settings, all your IP address, DNS settings, proxy server, if you want BD Live internet access allowed or if it's limited, voice control settings, IP control settings. I'm not going to go much into that just because it has a lot of private information, and that's really just going to come down to whatever you're setting up. It walks you through this whenever you first set up the player, so it pretty much takes care of all that for you whenever you're first setting it up. And of course, there's legal notices if you want to take a look at those. And we have ratings. So DVD video ratings is set to 8. There's no limit. If you wanted to have some kind of lock where it could only play certain rated disc, you can set through those, especially if you have a kid or something in the house and you don't want them to watch certain things. You can lock it up. So you can do that. BD video ratings, again, you could have certain years if you want. I can go through there if you want to do that. Let's leave it at 0, or no limit, I should say. And then we also have network service lock. So you can turn this on or on if you wanted to make it where someone can access the internet. Basically, you could turn that off or on. And then we have the system. So you can just do easy settings. You could execute basic settings if you did that. I'm not going to do that because it's going to mess everything up here. Display settings, you can turn on the screensaver function. I always say yes, go ahead and keep that on, just because then it helps prevent image retention, as it says below, basically burn in. Status images, when auto is selected, playback status is displayed automatically during operation. I like to be able to see those badges up top, so I keep them on. If you don't like them, turn them off. And then the Vera link, it only is this set to use when connected with the HDMI cable to a device that supports a Vera link. If you have something that can support that, go ahead and keep it on, turn it off. It just depends on what your TV can handle, if you can even do that. I have mine set to on. I don't use it for anything, but it's always an option if I so choose it to be. And the front panel display, so you can turn this bright, dim, or auto. I always keep mine bright because I like to be able to see it. And there's the quick start, so this basically just makes sure to turn the player on faster. So it will consume more power even when it's on standby or turned off, because it just instantly boosts it up. It's really fast. So if you're not worried about that, about having the fastest turn on, you can go ahead and just turn it off, and it'll actually reduce how much power is being consumed by the player. In the remote control code, you can set to 6 different codes. So if you have several different remotes that are turning this on, you can always set the code to something else, and that'll make sure that 2 different players or 2 different devices aren't turning each other on simultaneously, so you don't have to worry about that. Then there's also the firmware update. So if you have, if you want to go ahead and check for an update, you can usually set that just to on, or you could just tell it to update now. System information, so this just tells you the license, firmware version information, all from there. I'm not going to go into that just because it has all the information just on the system. And then there's also restore default settings. That basically just erases the player. If you're going to be returning it, selling it, or giving it away to someone, then you might want to do that. But okay, guys, that is everything when it comes down to the settings. I know that is a lot of information, but hopefully it was helpful for you, made things a lot more simple. If you're worried about some of those settings, if it just seemed like it was overbearing, hopefully this helped clear up some of those questions. If you really need to get into the nitty-gritty on one of those settings, I would personally just Google it, so that way you can get every little bit of it. Usually there's large forums about every single thing out there that someone just breaks it down in detail. If that's more helpful for you, you can always go that route. I'm sure there's some other couple of YouTube videos that really dive into maybe just one of these settings in a full video if it's something that someone really gets confused about. The only other setting I did not cover in this video was the HDR optimizer, because I actually have a full video on that. Again, I will link that in the top right corner, and then I'll also put it in the description for you, so that way you guys can see all of the other different videos that I have recorded for the Panasonic series. And that way you guys can check those out, and if you have any more questions, one of those other videos might answer it for you. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. So if this video did help you, make sure to leave a like. Leave me a comment what you think about these settings, if it's just way too much, if this helps you. If this didn't help you at all, you can always let me know in the comments too. I'm not going to get offended. And then make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more home theater content just like this one. Alright guys, with that being said, that's all this video. Take care, and I'll see y'all in the next video.